Hi, my name is Dr. Cindy Peña.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ray Lopez.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Quintero.
Hello, my name is Liz Castañeda.
Welcome to our session. We first would like to apologize for our physical absence at today's session. We place a strong importance on the work of exploring a diverse feminist theoretical framework for studying women, specifically Chicanas, lifelong learning in adult education, and regret not being with you today. So the first question we want to reflect on is how Chicana feminism plays a role into our research.
I'll go first. I think this is a really exciting question because it allows us the opportunity to share what it is we do within this realm. I have been working with Cindy and some other colleagues on Chicana or different types of feminism, and Cindy and I have been focusing on Chicana feminism epistemology and through the storytelling lens of how storytelling is brought into the realm of adult education. It's really exciting and I really love it.
And so with me, it has basically been my foundation for my research. I came into adult education with a bicultural bilingual background. And so when I was trying to find a space for my research and my perspective, doing traditional research was not something that I wanted to do. And so I really wanted to put some of myself into it and make sure that all of my lived experiences are also part of my research. And so I didn't want that to get erased. And that is the foundation of every piece where I go into, I bring it with me. And so to me, it's in every little thing that I do. It doesn't matter if I frame it in a Chicana feminist theoretical framework, but it is an episteme, it's a consciousness for me.
And I think for my experience has been when I became a doctoral student, it was important for me to understand the feelings that I was undergoing at the time. Imposter syndrome and everything that was just part of that experience kind of led me to finding research on Chicanas and why was I feeling this way, and was I the only one? And obviously the research was there that showed that I wasn't. Imposter syndrome is very real and can take many forms, and especially in minoritized populations, going through this kind of this process, this PhD journey, has been one of reawakening for me, and understanding how I learn, why I learn, and what in my history has happened that continues to influence how I see the world. And so definitely Chicana feminism has played a major role in my education, and will continue to always be.
Yeah, and I would echo that sentiment to say that for me, it really was almost a permission to, to follow that path and letting the my lived experience really speak for itself and having the value, right? So appreciating the value that my lived experience contributes to the research. And to follow up with that in terms of how have we been affected by it, can say kind of what Ray touched on in terms of the storytelling and the representation has been really important and has really, impacted the way that I see adult education.
Similarly, for me, the population that I'm working with for my research is a minoritized population, and it's important for their voices to be heard. And I am using narratives and testimonios to be able to tell their story, and that will continue, and that's part of the epistemology that we're trying to bring forward and make known in adult education. So that would be continued. through my research.
And that was to kind of follow up on that too. I, like I said earlier, it's part of my consciousness. So it affected me when I came into the PhD program, because I thought I wasn't going to be able to do a lot of research through a, Chicana feminist lens, right? And so I thought I'm going to have to go and do a very traditional, just do interviews. Let's not go into, the stories of these women. And when I actually was able to talk to my advisor and say, hey, can I bring this over here and kind of connect it, it was nice to know that I was supported by her. And so it did affect a lot of my research into where I feel like now that if I do something in a very traditionalist way, it makes me, it's not true to myself. It's not true to what I'm doing. And so a lot of my research has to do with immigrant women, it has to do with communities that are also marginalized. And so I don't want to I want to put them in a better, highlight them in a better way versus how it's been done in the past. And so it has affected me into where I know that, like, maybe moving forward, some of my subjectivities is going to be contested. And so I know that it's going to affect me in that certain way of my lens and my perspective may be challenged by others.
And given all of that, how have you navigated through the different intersectionalities?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question, because it's one that you don't necessarily stop and think and say, oh wow, I'm a Latina, or I am a researcher, and I come from like, it's kind of like in your subconscious who you're coming, what experiences you're coming with. It's not until I believe that you get put into a situation where you're reminded that you're speaking Spanish, and that, some that language barrier is there, and other people are not going to understand what you're saying because they're not going to understand that lingo. And so then that's when it kind of comes up, right, where you remember that, oh wait, I do speak Spanish. And so that's another added layer to myself. And then you kind of question the literature when you're reading through the literature, and you're seeing that it's a lot of male authors. And then you start kind of realizing, hey, that's another intersectionality that I have, right? It's just, I'm a woman, but I don't see a lot of, like, especially in the early literature. And so you start, it's not like all of the intersectionalities don't hit you all at once. It just kind of comes in like little waves of, oh well, that's not me, like that, this is really me, or that's not how I would view this, because I was raised in a very traditional Mexican household, so I don't see how that perspective plays into these roles. And so that's how I see intersectionalities, and how it goes and it plays into all of the things that I do.
Yeah, it's really just, it's being intentional in creating this space for reflection as you process and go through the work.
But at the same time, I'd like to mention how proud we are of our professors at Texas State that had led the field in feminism in general. And we're just so proud of them, and we're happy to follow in their footsteps as well, just putting in a slightly different niche. But intersectionality is very important to all of us as females. Mm-hmm.
I think studying this epistemology and understanding it a little bit also gives, for me personally, gives me permission to be who I am. A lot of times we enter these spaces, these academic spaces, especially almost feeling like an outsider, because we've not been traditionally involved in these spaces. And so not just as a person, but also in the literature, right? Because we're not, you know, traditionally not introduced, we're being portrayed using other frameworks and other as another, right? And so I feel like learning and researching in this way, this Chicana, through this Chicana lens, also gives me the license to be who I am, you know, to the license to be strong, to question, to stand up for injustices. And I feel like as researchers, we're doing that through the research that we're doing, right? And so, yeah.
So I'm going to also take that to the next question and add to that. So how this impacts our work in adult education research. And for myself, this working with y'all, right? So working together, that's very much in line with like our culture and community and uplifting each other. And that has really impacted the work that I do in adult ed. So primarily, you know, this work is done in collaboration, where in other areas of my interest is typically done individually. So that's how this has really impacted my work in adult ed research.
Sure. And as Chicanas, we're used to working together. Like Christmas just happened, we all sat down and made tamales, right? That's what women do in the Chicana culture. And it's really exciting to me to do this research. And it's also exciting to meet others. We see other people at conferences and they come up to us and they say, wow, you're representing me, which is really, really great to hear. We're learning about their research and what they're doing. Really neat.
It is. It's good to start seeing people that look like you, right? Because once you're going into the field of adult education, you don't really see a lot of, like, I love our professors at Texas State. However, there wasn't a Latina that was my professor. You know, there wasn't anybody there that looked like me. So that made me just kind of feel like a little bit like an oddball, because I know that I was understood, but when you have a Chicana or Latina consciousness, especially like what you're saying, Ray, like I am the person that also has a family that gathers around a table and makes tamales together. And so I come with that experience. If you haven't shared in that experience, you don't necessarily understand it. You may have some similarities with other things, right? But it's a different setting, because it's kind of like the insider knowledge when you're doing things like that. And so that's what using a Chicana feminist epistemology brings into play. It brings into that consciousness that you have these lived experiences that others may not. And so then that plays into the intersectionalities, and it plays into how is our work actually, put out there into adult education. How is it going to be accepted, or is it not accepted? And luckily, very, very lucky, in these past few years, it's been accepted. And I think it's because it's just that thirst for more, right? It's the wanting us to be more productive with our issues that arise in the research, especially if I'm going to be researching immigrants, and there is experience in my life with immigrants, because both of my parents were immigrants. And so coming with that insider knowledge into the research, I think, is beneficial. And it's very beneficial to the work in adult education, because you get that perspective rather than getting a very objective perspective.
Well, thank y'all for the conversation and the discussions. I know we have a lot of these talks offline. So, it was great to just kind of put this in a format where other people can kind of take a peek into some of the conversations that we have. And again, we'd like to just thank everybody for for viewing our video and apologize again for our inability to be there in person. And if you have any questions, our contact information is available in the brochure. Thank you.
Bye.